Alright, hello guys, how's it going? In today's video, we're talking about Tropical Storm Elsa once again. For today's comment of the day, I want to know, when do you think we will see our next tropical cyclone in the Atlantic Ocean? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll be picking one of those for tomorrow's video. Now, let's get straight into this video. This one did become briefly a hurricane as of yesterday, I must mention that. Also, yesterday morning, the National Hurricane Center had already put out hurricane watches for some portions of Florida. Very impressed with their accuracy, being able to eyeball the possibility of this one re-intensifying into a hurricane. It sure enough did, and they were way ahead of the schedule with that one. They were on top of that. Very, very impressed with the accuracy there. Here's the satellite imagery as of this morning. And as you can see, we do have some disorganization here, to say the least. We kind of have a donut going on with some storms in the middle. You can see it kind of goes around. It's really all over the place, and this isn't what a strong storm typically looks like. We do have some major impacts expected for basically the entire East Coast from Florida to Maine, including major flooding potential, and then also some really, really strong winds on par with a stronger nor'easter expected with this storm. So this one is not going to be some super weak storm, regardless of how organized or unorganized it appears to be. And I think once this one moves back offshore of the Atlantic, it could get to work with intensifying again. Here is the National Hurricane Center's cone forecast, and as you can see, hurricane warnings remain up for what I called the armpit of Florida, but apparently it's called the Big Bend of Florida. I never knew that. I've never been to that area in Florida. I do love Florida, but I called it the armpit of Florida because I know of the armpit of Africa, which is located in the armpit of Africa. So you can search that up. So I was referencing that kind of and using it because it kind of does look like a very much so smaller version of that. Now, as you can see, it actually is remaining a tropical storm potentially all the way up the East Coast. It has the potential to track offshore once it reaches kind of the Delmarva and stay offshore. That would be the most major solution here for the Northeast and also the eastern regions of Canada because of the fact that it could intensify further. We do have tropical storm watches up for the yellow regions and tropical storm warnings up for the blue regions there. So we are looking for impacts immediately for some of those regions. As you can see, this is kind of the previous winds, and the yellow areas have received tropical storm force winds, and the red areas have become hurricane force winds. And as you can see, it's happened twice. Once they're offshore of Florida, and then once they're south of Puerto Rico for quite a while. Obviously, that's when we were seeing a stronger hurricane, and we expected that one to potentially stay a hurricane, although it did break up from the land interaction and because of its speed it was heading at. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to move on. We're going to take a look at the probability of tropical depression, tropical storm, and the probability that it becomes a hurricane again. We'll have to see if that's possible. Then we're going to talk about why the hurricane season has kind of slowed down outside of this storm the last week or so. And then we're going to start talking about spaghetti model guidance and also impacts in just a moment. Now, here's the probability of tropical depression, and as you can see, we're at a 90 to 100% chance there for like the entire East Coast. It's almost certain that it will at least be a tropical depression all the way up. Now, this model also says the probability of tropical storm is pretty low for the southeast. I think what's going on with this model, because I usually talk about how it can do weird things, I don't think it uses like the current data very well, because if it was, it would see that it is currently a tropical storm, and at least over the next 0 to 3 days, it is going to give at least Florida some tropical storm force winds, but it's not even picking up on that. So I think it just kind of uses like a future projection, not even really using the current data. I don't know what's going on, but something is going dramatically wrong. Regardless, it does have a very high chance of tropical storm force winds for the northeastern corner of the United States. And as I add my human opinion here to this model data, because that's all it is just guidance for what we think as forecasters. So I really think this one has a good chance to at least be a tropical storm as it's heading through Florida and Georgia. It could weaken to a tropical depression, but once it starts getting over those waters again offshore of the Northeast, I think it will regain that tropical storm status there. So here's the probability of hurricane, and this model says a 0 to 10% chance. I definitely agree. I think it's pretty much done with being a hurricane at this point. Here's the reason why I really think this hurricane season has slowed down for at least a little bit. It's because we have so much dust out here in the Atlantic. This is throughout the day today what we're expecting. And as you can see, for the main development region, we are covered in dust. So there's nothing happening out there. And this is by the time we're reaching 10 days from now, the 17th. It gets a little bit less potent, but it is still all over the place, even the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. This is going to really hinder development unless there's a few pockets of air that is a little bit resilient to that dust. I really think we're slowed down for at least the next week or so, but these things have surprised me before. Now, talking about spaghetti model guidance, here we go. Here is our European ensemble models spaghetti model guidance. And it's very tight, but it does have this intensifying into a stronger storm offshore of the more northeastern corner of the United States. A sub 1,000 millibar low pressure system. So most of those blue ones have it between 980 and 999 millibars. And there's a lot of those in there that have it around 980, and there's a couple that take that even to the 70s, the 970s there. So that is a very low pressure system. And I think this really could feel more like a nor'easter for a lot of folks. You know, heavy rainfall and some pretty strong winds, especially in the Northeast. You're very familiar with what nor'easters feel like. I think this could be similar as far as impacts are concerned. It will have tropical characteristics to it though. Here's the individual models, and as you can see, they all have it heading pretty much in the same direction. So we get great agreement there. Now here's the model intensity guidance. You can see there is that very slim chance that this one does kind of re-intensify into a very strong tropical storm, or maybe even trying to flirt with a category 1 there. There is 2 models there. You can see that blue and green one that do take it back up towards that stronger storm. But most of these take this towards a weaker tropical storm as it heads up the northeast. It'll already be in the northeast and the New England regions by hour 72. So you can see there's only a couple of models that have it below tropical storm status by that point. So it's very likely it stays a tropical storm at least to that point. It's going to start to move really, really quickly. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move on and we're going to start talking about impacts. Tropical storm force wind speed probabilities, most likely arrival time of tropical storm force winds, storm surge, total rainfall, flooding probabilities, and even the wind that is expected. All right, now here we are taking a look at that tropical storm force wind speed probabilities. And if you're anywhere in the greens, you're at about a 30% chance or lower. If you're anywhere in the yellows, you're at about a 30 to 60% chance. And then the oranges, reds, and purples there, that's where we're at a 60% plus chance. So as you can see, for most of these regions in the southeast and the northeast, we're at about a 50-50 shot. This probability usually does go up once you're within 1 day of tropical storm force winds or so. Here's the most likely arrival time of tropical storm force winds, and just find your area, and we have lines going on there that'll show you exactly what time is most likely for the arrival time of those damaging winds. I encourage you to find your area so you can be aware. Now here is the storm surge probability, and as you can see, there's plenty of areas there along Georgia and South Carolina's coasts where we expect 1 to 2 feet storm surge, 1 to 3 feet there for the southern coast of Florida. We see that there is some 2 to 4 there. Kind of near the central coast, and then basically the Big Bend there, and take that southward towards Tampa Bay. We expect 3 to 5 feet of storm surge to be possible, which is where it's becoming a little bit more impactful, obviously. And then about 2 to 4 feet there for some areas in the Panhandle, and even further west in the Panhandle, 1 to 2 feet. So that's where our storm surge forecast lies at this point. Total rainfall, according to the National Hurricane Center, if you're anywhere in the lighter green or brighter green, if you will, 1 to 2 inches of rainfall is likely. Darker green is 2 to 4, so you can see that goes all the way up the coast, which is enough in some very flooding susceptible regions to cause some flooding. And then definitely the yellows here, which is mostly for Florida and Georgia. We expect 4 to 6 inches of rainfall, which is certainly enough to create some flooding hazards. Now here is the flash flood probability, and as you can see, we have a marginal risk there in the greens, a slight risk, which is a 10% chance there in the yellows, and then in the red there, we have a moderate risk, which is 20% chance for Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina. So flooding will be a possibility up and down the East Coast. Here's the European model's total rainfall, and if you're anywhere in the red, you're expecting 2 to 6 inches of rainfall to be possible, which is, again, all the way up the East Coast. And then here's the total accumulated maximum wind gusts, and this is where things get a little bit frightening. 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts there in the yellow. In the green, you're anywhere from 34 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts, so that's the entire East Coast. But those reds is where we're expecting anywhere from about 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts. The brown is 70 to 80, and then those kind of pink shades there that we see for Florida, or we don't see it for Florida, actually, never mind. For Virginia, the Delmarva, New Jersey, and then southern New England as well. That is where we expect the potential for 80 to 90 mile per hour wind gusts. I see a maximum in here somewhere. If you look at the bottom right, it shows you what the maximum this model sees anywhere, 97-mile-per-hour wind gusts. So there is the possibility that this storm includes a very major winds. That is the maximum wind gust, though I will kind of remind you of. But still, that is very frightening to see that that is a possibility according to that model. For today's confidence tab, we're at a 6 out of 6. We know where this storm is likely going. We know that this will bring flooding risk and wind risk. I feel more confident than I possibly could. I can't feel any more confident than this in a tropical system and its impacts. For today's comment of the day, I asked you guys, what is the maximum rainfall you see with this storm? And James Marr said, I think somewhere in Florida we'll get 7 or 8 inches. And I think that's likely the case. For today's patron highlight of the day, I want to thank you all for supporting the channel, but especially our platinum patrons, John Benbenek, James Wade, Dovey Nagel, Larry the Pan, and Donna Carnes, alongside our diamond patrons, Bill Roberts, Marcus Connolly, Noah Harley, Michael Codalesa, Catbite, Charles Stinnett, Cindy Klein, Mark J, Luke Flago, Gary Chonkalisi, Dwight Phelan, and Stephen Crenenthal. If you'd like to join this Patreon community today, you can do so by joining our very awesome Patreon page in the description and in the pinned comments down below. I'd also like to thank our channel members Hair Farms 1 and Catbite as well. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to destroy the like button, leave a comment down below to help that YouTube algorithm out, and also be sure to subscribe if you like weather-related content. I will see you guys in the next video.